Yo, Vicky, otra vez. Ok, vale, muchas gracias por mirar. Many thanks for watching. Okay, so what we're going to do in today's video. En el video de hoy, in today's video, I'm going to look at something this has been requested by many of my students to go through, which is how to say in Spanish in the past tense was or were. So, I was a student. We were in England. Was and were. So easy in English to use this verb in the past tense, the verb to be. So, one thing in English, we only have one verb to be, which probably if you're not an absolute beginner watching this video, you'll know that in Spanish we have two verbs to be. So that's our first problem, deciding whether to use ser or estar. Am I saying I was a student? Will I use ser or will I use estar? Then, not only that we have to worry about whether we're using ser or estar, but we have to think about if we're using the preterite past tense or the imperfect past tense. Now, in English, it doesn't matter which one you're using because it still was and were. There's no change between those two. There are those two tenses, but because the verb doesn't change, you wouldn't even know you were using a different tense. Of course, in Spanish, this is not the case. So in Spanish, we have to think ser or estar, preterite or imperfect, and then, of course, like in English, there's only the two forms, was and were. I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, yous, plural, you were, and they were. Was or were, only a choice of two. But of course, in Spanish, each person, the I, you, etc., has got a different form. So that's a lot, isn't it, to think about? So no wonder people get confused when they're speaking in Spanish and they need to say was or were. And that's what we're going to look at in this video. Now, I just wanted to mention, for any of you who've done classes with me or have used any of my books to learn Spanish at home, this subject, if you like, is going to be included in my level 5 book, which is coming out hopefully at Christmas, but certainly by the new year. Now, I just wanted to say a little bit about my books for any of you who don't know. The level 1 Break the Language Barrier book, which is available either through me, through the website, or you can order it on Amazon. It's on Amazon. This is for beginners or beginners with a base. It deals with alphabet, numbers, and then very quickly gets into ser and estar, verbs, etc. But it's for beginners. Everything is in the present tense. Once you get through level 1, you go to the pain barrier, as I call it, which is level 2. This concentrates on past tenses. It's quite a difficult level, this, because there's a lot involved in it. Past tenses, pronouns, etc. So, if you're serious about your Spanish, like level 1 will take you to a level where you can, have a basic conversation, order a table, reserve a table, etc., order your meals, things like that. You want to take your Spanish to another level and speak what I would call good Spanish, then level 2. You would go on to level 2 for your past tenses. Getting through the pain barrier is not easy, but when you get through it, you will go on to level 3, which deals with future tenses, also practicing the past tenses and the present tense, the other things that you've done. This is easier than level 2, but you have to go through level 2 to get to this point. It explains por and para, it explains the imperative, so that's all included in level 3. And if you get through level 3 and you still want to improve your Spanish, remember it's a big thing learning a new language, then you will come to level 4, which is dealing with the subjunctive. If you're a beginner, don't even think about the subjunctive yet. This is it's quite advanced. So, I mean, it's not difficult, but you have to have gone through all the other levels before you can get to learn about the subjunctive. And then, as I say, very soon we'll be coming out level 5, which you can pre-order now at €10. Will be €15 when it's published. And level 5 will be a practice of everything, a little bit of everything that we've done in levels 1 to 4. It's not a grammatic, you won't be learning new grammar. It'll be practicing with translations, conversation practices, games, crosswords, anything to practice what you've done in these previous 4 levels. So the reason why I'm going through this is this how to say was and were in Spanish will be included in the level 5 book. But of course, you have this video now. We'll watch the video. Well, I won't be watching the video. I'll do the video. You'll watch it, and hopefully, this will help you. You know, it is very difficult. You'll be there, and you want to just a simple thing like, yes, they were in the shop. You know, it's like were, right? Which were is it? Is it ser? Is it está? Is it pre-treat? Is it imperfect? So it's quite a lot to think about. So that's what we're going to look at. So first of all, we're going to look at ser and está in the 2 tenses. So let's look at them in the pre-treat, just to remind you of the forms. So ser in the pre-treat, again, this is all in level 2 book, because this is where the past tenses are, is the F verb, as I call it. Fui, fuiste, fue. Fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. And está, again, is irregular in this pre-treat tense. Estuve, estuviste, estuvo, estuvimos, estuvisteis, estuvieron. So first thing, we have to learn those forms. I mean, I would recommend that you learn these. Like just keep repeating them, keep writing them out until you can remember them, because these are essential verbs. You cannot speak good Spanish without knowing the verb to be in the past tense. It's impossible. It comes up too often. You need to say it too often. You can't avoid it. You know, some things you can avoid. I'm a great believer in need to know Spanish. You know, there's no point in, knocking yourself out trying to learn complicated grammar that you don't really need. These you need, essential. Vale? So, now, do you remember when we use the pre-treat? What decides when we use the pre-treat tense rather than the imperfect or rather than the present perfect or any other tense? Remember, the pre-treat we use for past, finished actions, singular actions. In other words, things we do once, not things we always did or things we used to do, things we did. Yesterday, I went to the shops. Last week, I was in Alicante. You know, we've got a specific point in time that we're talking about and a one-off singular action in the past. Okay, so that's the pre-treat. So if I just give you a couple of little examples, I might say el año pasado fuimos. El año pasado, or let's give a specific date. So, el día 6 de noviembre, el año pasado, fuimos ganadores, we were winners, en una competición, in a competition. So, that's a one-off singular action in the past. We didn't always win that competition, or we didn't win it every week. We won it once. We were winners once. To be a winner, we consider like a title or a profession. So that will be ser. So we need to have a little revision of when use ser or when use estar. So if you have the books, remember every single book has an explanation of ser and estar, every single one. I've got lots of videos, there's a playlist on ser and estar. And there's a mnemonic that I made up, the caprinct and flomits. So caprinct, we use ser for colours, origin, profession, possession, personal relationships, identity, nationality, characteristics, and time. And we use estar for flomits, is the mnemonic to remember. Again, there is a video on this on my channel. All my books have this in. Flomits, feelings, location, moods, marital status, emotions, and temporary states. That's when we use estar. Now, I think a good way of remembering ser and estar is to think estar we use for feelings, location, moods, emotions, and marital status, and temporary states. Everything else we use ser for. So if you're struggling to remember ser and estar, just learn when we use estar, and then just think everything else is ser, because there are more things we use ser for. So you've only got to learn flomits, feelings, location, moods, marital status, emotions, temporary states, for estar, and then anything else that comes up is going to be ser. Anyway, that's how I remember it. But okay, so that's the pre-treat. Ser and estar in the pre-treat. Let's have a look at the imperfect. Now, do you remember when we use the imperfect in Spanish? No. Whereas the pre-treat we use for singular one-off actions at a specific point in time, the imperfect is the opposite. It's repeated actions in the past, things we always did, or things we used to do. You know, every Sunday I used to go to the beach, or every Wednesday I went to see my sister. You know, so these are regular habits and routines in the past, whereas the pre-treat is our singular actions at a specific point in time. For the imperfect, you would have no specific beginning or ending. And it also, so it translates to used to or was doing. You know, I was walking down the street. It's an ongoing action in the past. It's not a specific, not I walked down the street. Now, so we've got ser. Ser is irregular in this tense, one of the only three verbs that are irregular in this tense. Era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. And I think I've forgotten there is an accent on the éramos. As you know, I always forget something. Usually accents are difficult. And on the estaba. Okay, so we've got for ser, era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. And estar, estaba, estabas, estaba, estábamos, estabais, estaban. Now then, that's our forms. So the imperfect, as I say, you use it for ongoing actions in the past or repeated actions in the past. So we've had a little look at the actual forms and when we use them. I'm going to go through now some examples. I'm going to read out an example of an English sentence, and we're going to see if you can work out, is it ser, is it estar? And is it pre-treat or is it imperfect? So you've got 4 things to consider. You know, it's a lot. So don't worry if you're finding it difficult. Everybody finds it difficult. Every English speaker finds it difficult because you're talking about you've gone from only having to decide whether it's was or were to suddenly you've got to, first of all, you've got to make 4 decisions. Before you even look at the form, you've got to make the decision if it's pre-treat or imperfect and is it ser or estar. Once you've done that, then you've got to, because all the forms are different, it's not just was or were, you've got 6 different forms. So yeah, it is difficult. So don't be hard on yourself if you find, don't think, oh God, I find this difficult. It's difficult. Okay, so number 1, the first sentence we're going to look at. I was a student in 2021. Now remember, there's always clues to which tense we should use and which verb we should use. What are the clues there? I was a student in 2021. Well, your first clue is student. I was a student. So what are we saying? How would it fit into our coprinct and flomits? And student is counted as a profession. And this is why, because you probably know already, it drives me mad when I see people saying, teachers, and YouTube channels, etc. Oh, it's permanent or temporary. No, it isn't permanent or temporary. I was a student, obviously it isn't permanent, but it's still ser. So, first clue is student, and that's ser. Your second clue is in 2021. It's a specific time. So that tells you it's preterite. So I was a student in 2021. Now, if you don't want to know the answer before you've tried to do it yourself, now's the time to stop the video because I'm going to give you the answer. Fui estudiante en 2021. Now remember, in Spanish you don't need un. Fui un estudiante, no. Fui estudiante en 2021. Okay, so number 2, the sentence we're going to look at in English is, he was always tall for his age. He was always tall for his age. So, was, where are the clues in that sentence? He was always tall for his age. So we have 2 clues. First clue is to which verb we use. Second clue is to what tense it is. So, he was always tall. Tall is a characteristic. It's a even if it was a characteristic that might change, because he obviously probably will get shorter as he gets older, and he was probably short when he was a child and he's got taller. It's not whether it's permanent or temporary, it's whether it's a characteristic or not. So, first of all, we know we're using ser because it's tall. Then our second clue, which will tell us which tense to use, is always. He was always tall. So not just yesterday, not just last week, not just last year, always. So it's imperfect. So for this, again, this is the time to pause your video if you don't want to hear the answer before you've had to go at working it out yourself. Siempre era alto para su edad. Now, you could put the L in at the beginning if you want to make it clear it's he, because of course era could be he or she, or I. So, él siempre era alto para su edad. And if you're not sure about por and para, that's in level 3, in my level 3 book. Okay, number 3, numero tres. The English is, what was his sister like? What was his sister like? So, first of all, we're asking for a description of her. And if we're asking for a description of her, we're asking for characteristics. Yeah? So, some reason right, I've just got to go and plug in my video because I forgot to put it on charge, sorry. Bear with, bear with. We need to, yes. It does help if you turn it on, doesn't it? So yes, if you want to charge something up, is that charging now? Yes. If you want to charge something up, it helps if you turn it on. Yeah, okay, sorry. So, what was his sister like? So we're asking for a description of his sister. So it's characteristics. So it's ser. And we're asking what was she like? Not what was she like yesterday? What was she like last year? What was she always like, really? We're asking for a general, ongoing description. The answers come in. So, ¿cómo era su hermana? ¿Cómo era su hermana? Okay, did you get it right? Let me know how you do. Let me know what you think about this and how you try and remember. If you write in the comments, but that might help another student who's struggling with this. So number 4, numero cuatro. Where were you yesterday? Where were you yesterday? Again, 2 clues. One clue that tells us whether it's ser or estar, and one that tells us whether it's preterite or imperfect. Where were you yesterday? The answer's coming. So, donde, where? Now, location, 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 always estar. And it's where we use, so it's donde estuviste ayer. And why is it estuviste, preterite? Because it's yesterday. It's a specific point in time, not just where were you, and we don't know what time we're referring to. Where were you yesterday? Numero 5. It was a restaurant that I liked very much. It was near the beach. So I repeat this because you might want to write these down so that you can have a go at translating them. It was a restaurant that I liked very much. It was near the beach. We've got 2 was's here. So I'm going to explain the answer. So I'll repeat the English once more, just in case you want to write it down. It was a restaurant that I liked very much. It was near the beach. Answers come in. So it was a restaurant. That's characteristic, or, it was a restaurant. So, we'll use era because it was always that restaurant. So, era un restaurante que me gustaba mucho, that I liked a lot. And then it was near the beach, that's location. Estaba cerca la playa. So I'm using imperfect for both of those there because I'm talking in general about this restaurant. It was a restaurant I liked very much, not just on one day, but over a period of time, and it was near the beach, not just on one day. So we're using imperfect, and the first one is ser, first was is ser. It was a restaurant, and the second one is location, so it's estar. Era un restaurante que me gustaba mucho. Estaba cerca la playa. Okay, número 6. The house was cheap 10 years ago. The house was cheap 10 years ago. So I'm not going to signal now when I'm going to give the answer or whatever. I think you've worked out more or less what we're doing. You can always pause at any time or go back to listen again to what I'm saying. So the house was cheap 10 years ago. It's a specific point in time. It's 10 years ago. So that tells us it's preterite. And it was cheap, characteristic. So the answer will be La casa fue barata hace 10 años. La casa fue barata hace 10 años. Número 7. I thought that the class on Thursday was very interesting. I thought that the class on Thursday was very interesting. So our first verb in that sentence is thought. I thought. And this is on Thursday, so it's a one-off action at a specific point in time. The verb to think is a strange one. It's you can really always get away with the imperfect with to think. But anyway, I'm going to do this in the pre-treat because it's on Thursday. Pensé que la clase el jueves fue muy interesante. Interesting is a characteristic. Sometimes people say to me, oh, well, I might think it's interesting, but somebody else might not. Doesn't matter. It's a characteristic. So, pensé que la clase el jueves fue muy interesante. Número 8. Who was the winner on Saturday? Who was the winner on Saturday? So the winner is a title, a characteristic. So first of all, it will be said, and we're talking about Saturday, we're talking about one day. So it's preterite. Who was the dinner? Who was the winner on Saturday? ¿Quién fue el ganador el sábado? ¿Quién fue el ganador el sábado? Okay, número 9. The English is, they were married for years, but they never lived together. Okay, so they were married for years. Now, marital status is estar. And if they were married for years, but we don't know how many years, so we're going to use imperfect. So, estaban casados por o durante, but not para, años, pero nunca vivían juntos. So vivir, again, we're going to put in the imperfect. So they were married for years, but they never lived together. Estaban casados por o durante años, pero nunca vivían juntos. Número 10. The wedding was on Saturday and it was in a little church in the village. So the wedding was on Saturday and it was in a little church in the village. Okay, so if the wedding was on Saturday, that's time. Saturday's a specific day. So we're looking at preterite and said. And it was in a little church in the village. Well, that's location, where it was. So we're looking at estar and preterite. So, la boda fue el sábado y estuvo en una iglesia pequeña en el pueblo. So, la boda fue el sábado y estuvo en una iglesia pequeña en el pueblo. Okay, número 11. When we went to America, Trump was the president. So, when we went to America, it's a one-off action. It's not when we used to go to America. So, cuando fuimos a los Estados Unidos, o America, Norteamérica, Trump era el presidente. So that's a tricky one, yeah, because you want to say Trump fue el presidente. But of course, he was the president before we went, and he presumably carried on being the president for a little while after we went. So, cuando fuimos a America, Trump era el presidente. And it's se because it's profession. Número 12. The last time I was in Madrid, it was winter. So, the last time I was in Madrid, That's location. But it's a one-off, isn't it? The last time I was there was only one time was the last time. So, la última vez estuve en Madrid era invierno. But it, again, see, this is a little bit tricky, isn't it? Because it was winter before I went, and it was winter presumably when I came, still winter when I came back. So it was winter is an ongoing action. But when I went, the last time I was there, it's a one-off action. So tricky. La última vez estuve en Madrid era invierno. I think you could get away with fue there. There are times where it could be either, so you must always remember that as well. Número 13. They were always best friends all their lives. I think this one is clearer. For the tense anyway, if they were always best friends all their lives, that's got to be imperfect. And best friends is a personal relationship, so it's ser. Siempre eran mejores amigos. Todo la vida. Número 14. When he was in Spain, he was a waiter. So, location, cuando estaba en España. I'm going to use imperfect because we don't know when he was in Spain. It doesn't specify a particular time. Cuando estaba en España, and you might want to say él, because to make it clear it's he, era camarero. And then you don't need to put in él there because camarero tells us it's a he. Though it could be yo, I suppose it could be I was a waiter. So yeah, cuando él estaba en España era camarero. Well, we've already said él, so. Número 15. Every week I was there at the hospital. Every week, repeated action. I was there. Estar, location. Cada semana estaba allí, o yo estaba allí en el hospital. Número 16. On Sunday, I was at the beach. Location again, one Sunday. El domingo estuve en la playa. 17. Yous, plural you, were my best friends in Spain when yous were here. So, best friends, personal relationship. When you were here, location. No specific times, just when you were here, but we don't know how long you were here. You're not talking about just one day, 1 minute. So we're going to use imperfect. Erais mis amigos mejores en España cuando estabais aquí. Número 18. I don't know why, but Pedro was always sad at Christmas. I don't know why, no sé por qué. But Pedro was always sad, emotion. Pero Pedro siempre estaba triste en Navidad. Yeah? The first part of that is present tense. I don't know why. No sé por qué. Pedro was always sad, mood, emotion. Imperfect because he was always sad. So, no sé por qué, pero Pedro siempre estaba triste en Navidad. Número 19. Carmen was so angry last night when she heard the news. Last night, so it's preterite. She was so angry, mood, emotion, so it's estar. Carmen estuvo tan enfadada anoche cuando oyó las noticias. And the last one, la última, número 20. They asked us if we were happy with the food, and we told them that it was great. So they asked us if we were happy with the food. So happy, mood, emotion, feeling. We told them it was great, characteristic, not what we thought of the food, what it was. It was great. So they asked us, nos preguntaron, slipping a little pronoun there. Nos preguntaron si estuviera, si estuvimos, si estuvimos contentos con la comida y les dijimos, and we told them, y les dijimos que fue estupenda. I was just thinking, could you get away, que era estupenda? You could almost get away with that as well, but I think I'll go for fue because this is one meal we're talking about. So, nos preguntaron si estuvimos felices con la comida o contentos con la comida y les dijimos que era estupendo o fue estupendo. Okay, I hope that's made sense. I hope it's helped you out. As I say, you must, really, well, you don't have to, but if you want to learn Spanish, you must learn these forms, yeah, of the verb to be, in preterite and imperfect. And then you need to look at, try and remember when you say, when you use está, when you use preterite, when you use imperfect. I hope I've covered most of that in this video. Hope it's felt helpful. And as I say, this exercise, if you like, will be in my new level 5 book when it comes out probably in the new year. Vale, so gracias por mirar. I hope you're doing well with your Spanish studies. If you have anything you want to ask me, you can always ask me in the comments box or send me an email or whatever. So, I'm always interested in feedback. So anything that you're particularly struggling with, it's probably not just you, it's probably loads of people out there struggling with exactly the same thing. Vale, so, como siempre, te veo muy pronto en el próximo video. Y hasta entonces, que tu Dios vaya contigo. Adiós.